myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on that.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is Friday night, or shall I say it's Thursday afternoon. It's another pre-record because obviously Doncaster on Friday night takes precedence, I'm afraid, for me. I'm actually on my way to Doncaster as you sit and watch this. So welcome to Keith Patterson, to Neil Mitchell and Steve Hasty once again. The Fab Four back in attendance. And as always, plenty of stuff to get us through the next 2 hours, including your favourites, tweet of the week, troll of the week, and of course those infamous lookalikes. And Keith, wow, it's been another busy week with the takeover. It started off with a bang, and then nothing. We obviously did a 15-minute special, which people can watch on the playlist, just to explain, what arbitration being postponed till 2022 means, but how important the CAT case is now. So let's talk about that first, Keith. Give us your views now at the end of the week as to where we actually stand with this potential takeover of Newcastle United.
I couldn't possibly say anything, Steve, because I've only done one letter, so I don't think I'm the right person to talk. There's got to be somebody out there that knows a lot more than I do. I'm just a bloke from Durham. I cannot resist because 1 minute people are second guessing what's happening, and I think everyone now is getting obsessed on dates. But what I'll do is tonight is for the people who do tune in every week is try and run through the differences between where we were and where we are now. An arbitration is to review decisions. So an arbitration hearing is to look back at what the Premier League have done with their ODT test, and the jurisdiction of that arbitration is just to have a look, review it. If they've got it wrong, correct it. A CAT case is much different. This is why I tried to get the club to run this from October last year, and this is why we invested ourselves in sort of UK top competition QC advice to make sure that the action we had and the concerns we had were sufficient to challenge the Premier League on their behaviour. Before I do it, I'd like to get rid of an elephant in the room, because it's, at the moment, I just seem to be like a magnet for people who call themselves competition experts, and I seem to be getting various lawyers from various areas to come out. And up to now, I've got four lawyers chasing us down. Our team have looked at these lawyers, and one we told is a lecturer, talks about everything he does now. One's a criminal lawyer, one is, I believe, linked in property, and one is, I'm told, commercial. But none of them, to our knowledge, have any competition experience. And it needs now to people who tune in to show that if you had a top competition QC at the level of Danny Jowell or Robert O'Donoghue, that kind of ilk, where you're in the top area of the UK in competition actions, to get somebody of this level that doesn't come from a competition background and is a lawyer, not a barrister, or not even a Queen's Counsel QC, is a bit like getting a Dunstan Fair player in our language, complaining and saying that Beardsley and Shearer haven't got what it takes to make it in football. You're just talking about leagues beyond your own capability. And if you had any lawyers that were breaking their way through in the competition arena, they would look up to the likes of Danny Jowell and Robert O'Donoghue with praise and say, Christ, they're in the legal 500, they're the top boys now game. They are the kind of players that Pep's trying to sign. They're top-end players. So I just wanted to get that first, because you might wonder why I dismiss these lawyers who come on and target NCSL and keep asking us. I'm not a lawyer. What I do is I acquire legal experience. So I've gone out and bought legal experience and spend in the region of 25 million doing so. So I'm qualified in knowing what a good competition person looks like. But when you get back to the case, the reason that I'm optimistic is because arbitration, as we now know, would only deal with separation. It would be dealing with one point that the judge confirmed, which was to determine whether or not PIF was separate from the state of Saudi Arabia. And that was the whole purpose of that arbitration case. You've seen this morning, Nick DeMarco has put tweets out, and he wouldn't do that for any reason if he didn't see value in making those things public. And what he's really saying is that transparency has been an issue in the Newcastle case, and it was in the Man City case as well. And similarities are starting to come out now, and I think that it's all pointing one way, that eventually transparency will come. These things will be made a matter of public interest, and we'll start to learn more of what's going on. But on the CAT case, where by default an arbitration normally runs in private, a CAT case normally runs in public. An arbitration runs with a hand-picked panel. So when you go on arbitration, it's a hand-picked panel where each side pick one member each. And then the second one is the last person is agreed upon. And that was the one that Newcastle tried to remove, which was Beloff. There's been rumours in London amongst the law set that Beloff's daughter is actually linked to some of the people on the other side of the action. So that's been a concern as well, that if Beloff has done previous work and didn't come forward with that information, it was challenged by the club, but the club failed to remove him. And then there's been rumour, and it is rumour, it's not from me, it's just things I've heard, that his daughter's been involved with for other people. It could be true, it might not be true, it might be troublemaking, I'm not sure, but it does cause concern. The big thing for me on the action.
Don't mind us asking at this point, Keith. Don't mind us jumping in.
No.
Isn't there a problem though with we're talking about a very specialised subset of people who could sit on that panel, and they're always going to kind of run into each other along the way. And doesn't that make that sorting out and agreeing who that third person would be extra difficult?
It does, because there's a amount of people that you can pick from. And there's a question about the whole transparency of running arbitration. There's people challenging arbitration transparency, but also impartiality. There's a feeling in that it seems in the football circle that finding a panel that will be impartial to a Premier League decision is difficult. So I think there's genuine concerns in that area, and you can go back. I mean, what I've noticed, some of the people watch these shows and question what we say and what we don't say. If you go to things I've said all along, I've always said I'll be happier if the CAT case ran before the arbitration, because when this case is over with, I'll reveal why I feel that way. But it's needless to say that it's always felt that the CAT case, I was told by a solicitor this week, there's no connection between a CAT and an arbitration. And our lawyers just belly laughed. You know, they thought it was hilarious. You know, how stupid a statement to make. It's so wide of the mark. Why a case that questions the behaviour of a body that was going to pass a takeover is related to an arbitration about a takeover is not connected. It beggars belief that somebody would ask that question. But I think you're right, Mitch. What you're saying is that there's a very small panel of hand-picked people to decide on a future of a football takeover that's probably the biggest takeover in world football. It's probably the biggest single event that's been contended, and certainly in terms of the Premier League, it's the longest running saga. I listened to Henry Winter this morning, and he was quite articulate in saying that whilst he had nothing against the likes of Masters, he thought that Newcastle had been badly dealt with, and he thought that it was wrong that this football club was just meandering into another season without any decisions. And he felt that the people of Newcastle, the fans, hadn't been dealt with fairly, that decisions should have been made. But going back to the two cases, I feel as though the arbitration had that doubt, and it seems now that the club share those doubts. And there's been a lot of debate this week. Was this, it was even asked this morning, was this the buyers involved in the decision on today's arbitration? I would absolutely say no. I would say that, you know, the buyers can't be involved. I would say that the people involved with dealing that arbitration could only be the club and the EPL. But if you're asking me off the record, do I think it was more club than EPL? I think it was more the club saying, make it public and we'll run it. The EPL say no, and the club say, right, we'll delay it. And How it's been spun as to people not being able to get various information together, I don't know. But right now, I think the club know that the arbitration running in July was littered with risk, and the risk was directed towards the panel. The fact that the whole thing was being run in private. Going back to the arbitration is there just to correct decisions. So the arbitration is there to look at that decision that could have been made in March, April last year that wasn't made, that was delayed. And the arbitration would look at that decision, look at separation, and see whether the correct decision was made or whether it should have been passed. The CAT will look at far greater things. What anybody tells you, a CAT will look, in short, as to whether illegal activity was going on in Great Britain, in British commerce. Was there any legalities? There aren't the delays in the CAT. At the moment, it's flavour of the month for anybody that's anti-Saudi, anti-takeover, and even some of the journalists who are tagging on to things, say this will take 2 to 3 years. That's not my understanding, it's not my belief. But what I'm not going to do is become a second guesser and try and put a specific date on this. I'm hoping we're going to get some news soon. And when we get that news, I'm hoping to put people at rest, that we can start counting down the times. Once it starts and they do the directions hearing, you'll then get dates and it'll be played out in public. And that's why I'm optimistic and I feel better about this action. So I don't think you're going to get the delays once this starts. I think people ask me the question on a daily basis, will the Premier League be allowed to delay? No. When you run a CAT case, you get dates and you've got to turn up and you've got to do things on time. And there's no delays allowed like on an arbitration. The CAT case, as I say, by default will be a public matter, so people will be able to dial into that and watch it happen.
There's another website we'll shut down for a week.
The CAT will look at something that the arbitration won't. It'll look at the EPL and their interactions with the ESL. So when you've got the Prime Minister talking about a cartel taking place in Britain over the ESL, you've got to look at who are members of that cartel, because if there's a cartel operating in Great Britain, the government have a duty of care to remove that cartel out of British trade. So you cannot allow a cartel to continue in any industry, whether that's football, whether that's politics, whether that's in bars in Newcastle. You can't allow a cartel to operate. It has to be stopped. So who are members of the ESL? The 6 people. They are members of Big Picture. So they are what's quickly become known as the Cartel 6. And what will be interesting is the skill of the Newcastle United St James Holdings law team, the team that's representing St James Holdings, who go out and seek the information that will be on record of where the ESL were formed, what they were saying to the Premier League, and what they were saying about, in particular, about the Newcastle over. So it won't be difficult. I mean, I've worked on a similar case. It won't be hard to come up with a set of questions to feed into their groups to get every single time Tottenham Hotspur, Liverpool, Man United sport the Premier League, and the word takeover was mentioned, or the word Saudi was mentioned, or Staveley, or Ashley. So your mind just runs amok as to what's going to come out here, and that's why a CAT case gives you that, and an arbitration doesn't. So to me, this always had to go first. I think the disclosure. I saw something today where they said that the disclosure for a CAT case is a separate set of documents by law than the documents for an arbitration. That is true by law. And that is so legally and literally, that is the fact of life, is one set of documents for one case doesn't travel to another. And now ask you a question. If it says, if the letter comes up and says on the 23rd of July in a CAT case, Tottenham Hotspur said, stop this takeover going through, otherwise we're dropping out of the Premier League, Mr. Masters. And that exists, say, on the 23rd of July. Are you going to kid me on that won't reappear in another court case? Because it's a fingerprint. It's a fact of life of the statement that was made. And somebody We just need to print that in public. Somebody just needs to bring that back out, and it'll reoccur and reoccur and reoccur. I think what some of these non-competition junior lawyers are saying is that, you know, documents for one case don't travel to another. That's what happens by the letter of the law. But in real world, which you need to get in for a few minutes and spend some time in the real world, those documents will make the way to another case. Next point was that I want to cover is something that came up from the Institute of Directors. I did a post a while ago. Institute Directors, they're sort of a body that look after directors of all companies in Great Britain. And they did an article about cartels, and they were warning their members about the dangers of being involved in a cartel. And what they warned their members, they said, it's not just being in a cartel that you've actually written a letter or taken a slice of an industry illegally. Being part of a cartel is thinking about it. So if you think about anti-competitive points, let alone do them, and you can be proven that you've sat and thought about them. So you don't actually have to turn to a meeting and sign a document to say, I'm part of this group of 6. The fact you've just thought about it, or you've had thoughts about it, or you've suggested in your WhatsApp group that it would be a reasonable idea to stop this takeover coming. Or if you just thought, oh, I wonder how we could keep the Saudis out, that's illegal. That's part of a cartel. And that was confirmed by the Institute of Directors. Boris Johnson calling it, I was told by somebody, it doesn't count for much. There's a top competition QC said it very much does. There's 3 angles of any competition action. This CAT would focus, and I'm generalizing here for the fans to try and keep it simple, but there's 3 parts of CAT behavior which the law won't tolerate. One is collective lobbying, which we've seen in the BI. One is collusion, and it's impossible to form a big CAT, big league, European favoured body for 6 companies without colluding. It's how could you ever get together? How could Arsenal and Chelsea become part of that group without colluding? It's physically impossible. It's just a case of how they get caught or how people set the trap to bring that out. And the last point is abuse of a dominant position. And that is where somebody's in a position and they won't act fairly for a league to make it competitive. And that could, for example, be compared with the Premier League taking 17 weeks to decide something that normally happens in 3. Now, they might have a good reason, but a CAT will ask them what those reasons are and judge whether they were a fair reason. The difference with a CAT case and an arbitration is, on an arbitration, you scrutinise your behaviour, you look at what happened. It's like a tribunal. You go over the behaviour and you come up with an answer at the end. In a CAT case, 1 strike and you're out. The first time you've proven to act anti-competitively, game over. You don't need to win 14 points. Newcastle's case will be massive. It'll be considerable, and it will hit them from all angles. It'll be hitting them about submitting the papers. For the first time round, it'll be confirming how people at PIF provide sufficient information and offered more. It'll hit them with what was going on with the Big 6 in regards to Newcastle's takeover. It'll hit them from every angle. If there's one example in that, then that's sufficient. That one example is sufficient to win the case. Something called silver bullets have been mentioned, and that's where you were doing disclosure and you find out something that's very, very damning towards your behaviour. As soon as one of that things comes out, what generally happens, both sides talk and they say, we've got this, do you want this to get out? And then usually the other side talks to their client, talks to their legal team, and then makes an offer to settle. And that's the reason why in many, many cases, CAT cases and anti-competition cases don't run their full course. They almost a lot of them settle in out-of-court settlements. And the big thing for me is I don't think that the Premier League will be able to account for the many delays they did with Newcastle on the first application. I don't think they'll be able to account for what they did when Bein Sports wrote to them. I think that when the Premier League asked, what did you do and what behaviour did you carry out when Bein Sports wrote to you and asked you to not pass the takeover of Newcastle United, I don't think the Premier League will be able to answer that. I also don't think the Big Six will be able to answer that as well. I don't think that the Premier League will be able to account for their actions, but I don't think the Premier League knows under disclosure what's going to come at them and what documents Newcastle are going to find. So for me, the cat's the only way to go. I think the arbitration was riddled with risk, and I'm a lot happier that the case I started in October is now going to come to fruition. And my only fear is, for whatever reason, it doesn't run. I've got no doubts it'll run. I'm certain it will run. But once it's running, once you say the cat started, I think my phone will be off. I think my Twitter will be off. And I'll just be sitting there chatting to you people offline.
Bitcoin Yoda on Twitter asked a question earlier on, Keith, which is probably a good one to ask you now. And it's, do you think that the interim findings of Tracy Crouch's fan-led review add weight to the CAT case? The findings, in essence, say that the EPL is unfit to make its own decisions on the ownership of English football clubs.
I think I'd answer that in reverse. I'd say, if I was the EPL defending this CAT case, and somebody said to me, do you know, you've just been voted by a fans-led review incapable of governing your own body. You're not capable of governing your own football association. I don't think it's a good start to run a case to say I got it right. I think what Bitcoin's asking is very relevant. I think that I have doubts. I have doubts that the new regulator that they put in is just as bad as the last lot. I have grave doubts about government and about the way football's run in this country. And if we don't win this case, I think I'll stop watching football because it'll be, to me, it'll be corrupt. So it's a good question to ask, but I think it's better off answered in reverse. I don't think it'll do them any favours, rather than will it win a CAT case or help us. I think it's going to put them in a weak position. I think our lawyers will use that. When you set the grounds, you set a route to a judge and say, Judge, this is the case. And if I was set that judge, I'd say, this is an organisation that's been judged in an independent government review of being incapable of governing themselves. It's also something that the Prime Minister has termed a cartel. That's how I would set the thing.
Okay, Mitch, it's a lot to take in. I've had messages from former players and fans alike over the last few days asking, what is the CAT? What is it? What does CAT mean? Is this good news? It's not really something I can answer wholeheartedly with any understanding, really, other than what I listen to Keith for. And I make no apologies once again to those who do tune in for a bit of light-hearted fun and laughter, etc. But this is a crucial time for Newcastle United Football Club, our club, and I think it's important that we all have at least some kind of grasp of knowledge as to what's going to lie ahead in the next few months. I think we can all safely say that we're probably not going to have any incomings on the football pitch. We're going to be stuck with Mike Ashley as owner and Steve Bruce as manager for the foreseeable, and that the legal wheels are turning, but they're not turning very quickly, and certainly not turning quick enough for us. So we are back in Groundhog Day, as we were this time last season, with COVID still hanging around as well. It looks as if we're heading towards another unpleasant winter, a winter of discontent, Mitch.
Well, yeah, and look, we understand the situation probably better than a lot because we get the opportunity to speak with Keith every day. And I get the initial angst, because one of the things Steve and I have been talking about is the tactic of kicking things into the long grass. And you see where the arbitration's been moved to, and you think, God, that's not just the long grass. It's a remote part of the Philippines where there's a Japanese soldier hiding who still thinks the war's on. It seems to be that far away. But equally, the reassuring thing that I keep coming back to over the last couple of days when I've thought about it is the way Keith's constantly gone on saying, I want the cat case to run first. I want the cat case to run first. And oh boy, he's got his wish in that with that move. A move which interestingly was agreed by all parties, which that's the bit that I find very interesting indeed, is that the club actually saying, okay, let's run with a cat case first and do what people have been advising me to do. As a fan base, we're in limbo, and we keep using this phrase over and over again, but that is where we are. But that's also the essence of what these court cases are about. And even now, you've got journalists, Keith refers to Henry Winter, who does have a soft spot for the club. I know people in the press who know him, and he likes coming to Newcastle, and he likes the fans, and he likes the vibe up here. And he, is quite right in saying, everybody deserves better out of this. And it's certainly, it sounds like we're going to get the opportunity to get this cat done in public, with nothing to hide. And that's what we need, is we need the transparency. So we've got a court case about to run, which is going to be open and have more transparency than the Premier League certainly want. And it kind of feels like the last roll of the dice in some respects. But I think we're all ready for a conclusion. A non-decision has been made. And we keep coming back to this. There was no decision made. That's the essence of it. They didn't want to make a decision, so they found every possible way to make a decision not possible by asking for things they knew they weren't going to get an answer to at one point, which is what a disgrace, to be fair. And I think the more of this kind of thing that we put out, whilst we've also got the results of the football review coming out, which, like you say, some of those things in there are quite salient to what's been happening in Newcastle United. Some of that, however, when I look at it, the difficulty with saying, right, we're going to put somebody independent in here is, again, you're going to be picking from a very small pot of people. And are they going to be truly independent? Like we were discussing last week, the EFL putting Peter Ridsdale on as one of their independent advisors after what he did to Leeds United. You're joking, aren't you? And you look at some of the things that have come out of that review, and it's obvious that a lot of the football authorities have had their own input into that. For example, the one that jumped out at me was the discussion about the EFL absorbing the top of the National League. Well, was it 18 months ago we were talking about that, Steve? Because we'd heard people at the EFL yakking away saying, yeah, we're going to stick everything together and regionalise it and let teams go part-time and all that kind of thing. So you wonder how much independence is actually going to be in there at the end of the day. But again, anything out of that can help put pressure on with this upcoming cat case is not a bad thing, in my opinion.
Steve, what's your take on it? I mean, it's again been another eventful week, a stressful week for everybody. I dare say a more stressful week for the buyer side as well, because, Amanda and Mirdad and PCP were so vocal when the fans were, on their way down to London to protest last Friday. And ultimately, I guess they might feel as if it was for nothing, because, then the announcement comes, more or less straight after that, the week after the weekend, to say that, arbitration is now being pushed back because both parties have agreed, and they're now left, hoping and praying that, that this cat case is going to happen sooner rather than later. But you get the impression that, time and patience will run out with these people at some point, because they've been here since 2017 trying to get this done. How much longer can they wait? Rafa couldn't wait. Can PCP, PIF and the Rubens? You're on mute, Steve, or he's frozen.
Oh, lad.
He looks like an impressionist painting there.
Mitch, will you take that question, and then we'll come back to Steve when he gets his internet problem sorted out.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention because I was wondering what was going on with Steve, because I could see him freezing and unfreezing and freezing.
I'm just talking about the buyer side. Do you think they're going to run out of patience? They've been involved since 2017. Amanda doorstepped, obviously, Lee Charnley at the Liverpool game in October 2017. She's the lady who was trying to facilitate this deal. She's brought PIF and the Rubens to the table. They're putting a small amount in. Rafa Benitez waited, took a job in China, was clearly, as he quite rightly stated over the weekend, was looking at the Newcastle job, was happy to come if a takeover went ahead. But now we're in a position where, arbitration is now being pushed back to next year. Is there a time when their patience is going to run out, do you think?
I think for PCP, from what we know of Amanda and Mehrdad, I think they're very determined to get their hands on Newcastle United Football Club, and I think they would wait another 5 years to do that if they could. The Rubens have been very quiet in all of this, and I know some people have been quite critical of that, because if anybody's able to put pressure on Boris Johnson, you'd think the Reuben family, big donors to the Conservative Party, and Boris personally probably could put some pressure on them, and they may be doing that behind the scenes. They're just not shouting about it. But they do seem to be the silent partners of it all. But then again, for them, it's a 10% investment in the whole deal. It fits in with our property portfolio and plans in Newcastle, so they're probably prepared to wait on it because they own enough bits in Newcastle that would benefit. So there's no rush there. I think the one that everybody's got angst about are they prepared to wait is PIF. And the noises I hear from talking to the lads in the press and what have you over here, who have kept me informed of bits and bobs over the last couple of years, is that, again, there's no rush, because they still don't see anything that's as good a value proposition in the current market to own outright. They don't want a part share of Inter. They don't want a part share of that one. PIF themselves have never been interested in Marseille, contrary to what people would have you believe. Marseille have been interested. There's been a Saudi prince, one particular Saudi prince interested in Marseille, but he's always dilly-dallied and he missed his opportunity when McCourt bought the club. And now what McCourt's asking for, Marseille, is way out of his league and way overpriced. Does the value proposition change with the effect of COVID? Yes. There might suddenly become a better value proposition on the market because of the effect of COVID and the finances in football clubs around the world. But I think that's the bit that everybody's anxious about. But we know that PIF aren't going to see out until they've got a clear path. It's as simple as that. And I would have thought, however, that PCP wouldn't remain interested if they thought they didn't have the financial backing that they had arranged through that. And so that's that. It's complex because it's a consortium. It's sort of, well, is this one still interested and is that one still interested? And it's difficult to know. And it adds to the angst, it adds to the takeover wariness. And people will say, oh, they pulled out. Well, kind of officially yes and no. Why are we going through this dance? Because I think if it was dead, if it was 100% dead, I think Amanda and Mehrdad would realise it was 100% dead. And I think that would be a different conversation.
Steve, sorry we lost you there with your internet, but I'm not sure whether you got the question. But my question was about the buyers. I mean, we're all frustrated. We're all sick of talking about takeovers, dreaming about takeovers. But is there going to come a point, do you think, where PIF and the Rubens and Amanda and PCP decide, well, enough's enough. We've been here since 2017. 4 years of our life almost trying to buy this football club. It's clearly not going to happen. We're just going to walk away.
You know what, Steve? There's probably contracts signed, and I think the fact that those contracts haven't been then ripped up when it was alleged that stated that PIF had walked away, and that both PCP, the Rubens, and we're led to believe PIF are still in the game, that alone tells me that all three of them have skin in the game. And, when legally you're obliged to continue, if you didn't want to be it, then you would have dropped out. You would have not just made the announcement, you would have told the other two recipients of your contract that we're not part of this anymore, and that would be walked. Otherwise, what you would have had, you had a situation where PCP and the Rubens are just floating a boat continually. And I don't think that in finance terms and in business terms, you could float that boat for very long before somebody caught you out. The fact that they also had deals signed with Mike Ashley, he obviously feels as though they're legally binding, and he wants this takeover to happen. So that's the way I'm looking at it. We went to London on last Friday because we were all seeking transparency. Excuse me. We'll listen to Amanda on the bus on the way down, where she came up for probably the third time that week that we'd had a statement that had come out, or that she'd made representation in the press about the takeover, her desire for the takeover to happen, her will to still be involved in that takeover. And she's not just speaking on behalf of herself, she's speaking on behalf of the consortium. So that's the way we all read it. We had Simon Jordan coming up with a load of piffle, which we're now, we expect, don't we? It's just par for the course. I mean, if you're sitting on a 45-seater coach and every single person is listening to Talk Sport on their phone, and shouting and bawling about made for quite
No, we lost you again, Steve. We're losing you. The internet's playing up again, mate.
I think he's about 50p in the meter.
Not good at all there. And Keith seems to have frozen
Keith
as well.
does as well. Aye.
I
Are you still there, Keith?
I'm just, I haven't frozen up.
No, your picture's not great quality. We seem to be having a few gremlins. And I've got to be honest, I think it's probably because of the storm which could be brewing outside. We haven't seen the sun all day in Gateshead, so I'm not sure what it's like where you are. But I think the networks are playing a little bit havoc with us. We'll crack on. We'll get Steve back.
I think you know what it's like where I am, Steve.
Yeah, you looks great where you are. Perfect. It could be the Steve and Mitch show the way we're going, because Keith keeps freezing. Steve's disappeared again.
Mine looks right.
Yeah, you probably look good at your end, Keith, but never look. We'll come back.
I never look good, mate.
It doesn't. It looks. It's very shaded. We can't really see a great deal. But we'll crack on. We'll just crack on through the gremlins. We can hear you all right, Keith, which is the main thing. Look again. I'll ask.
Back the way we started on Instagram.
Well, I'll ask. We are. I'll ask you the question, Keith. What I mean, you're dealing with the selling side. I mean. Have they, in the communication you've had, I'm not asking you to break any confidences here, but I mean, they clearly still want to sell the club. Is this all starting to wear thin with them? Are they getting sick and tired of this whole process, or are they quite focused on how things are pushing ahead?
I think they are as keen now to sell the club as they ever were. And in short, so I can get Steve come back in, they have spent an awful lot more money now. And they're determined to get a result. So nothing's changed there. I think they're working with what they've got. And what they've got is an EPL that won't put anything in public and won't play ball. So what they say is, oh, you think so, do you? And you think you can manipulate an arbitration, do you? I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go to a public cat case, and where it's not a panel to judge, and where disclosure's plentiful, and let's see who controls the game and the time frame. And you'll find now it's Advantage Club. If the club want to push this on now, if they don't do it, it's down to the club. If the club want to push a cat case, you don't have to push that far. Once a cat hears your case and agrees to take your case on, which they have, then it runs.
Okay, Steve, just finishing off where we left you when you dipped off there, mate.
He's stuck again.
He is, yeah. I don't know what's going on with Steve's internet. It's not good. It's not good. It's not good at all. Let's talk. Look, I think we've covered
something else on the back of that, Steve.
Oh, go on. You go for it.
We know 100%. Steve and I talk to people that we talk to regularly on the club side of things, and we know that every single expression of interest that they've had over the last few months have been battered away without even a discussion. We've talked about regularly as many as, up to 19 expressions of interest a month at one point. Yeah. There's always interest in the club from other people. So there'll be people sniffing around now looking, I think, can we get this cheap? How does this work? And they're just not speaking to anybody. They're just not. For Ashley at the moment, it's this deal or no deal.
I can verify that. I've had contact
it's
myself.
quite clear.
I've had discussions myself with people who've made offers to the club, and they're frustrated because whilst there is a genuine interest, and these are people who have got serious net worth, they have not been able to get the club to take them as serious as the PCP consortium. They're adamant that that's the deal in town. The club have used those words to me and said it's the only deal in town. So you've got to stop and say, why would Mike Ashley spend so many millions on legal action to either stop or to fail? And the answer is, I don't think he would. I think one thing about it is when it comes to making money or spending money, he's quite astute. That's where I get my confidence from.
Yeah.
Here it comes again. Oh, he's get on quick before you.
Third time lucky there. You passed this bug on to Keith as well, because Keith keeps going in and out. So it's almost a Steve and Mitch show, like we started on Instagram, Steve. But for the third time, can you finish off what you were saying?
Yeah, I was just saying that, you know, that if we've got two parties who are still in, and the third party who claim we're out, that those two parties are not going to be able to play that game of driving the wagon down the road. Everybody knows that and has to be convinced that PIF are still very much in the game, because you just couldn't run the show in any other way. It would be wrong on every single count. With the credibility of Amanda and the credibility of the Rubens, it just doesn't bear thinking that they would even be thinking of going down that path. There's a legal contract with Mike Ashley to buy the football club. There's contracts between the three parties who are purchasing it, working together, and that's the way that it continues. And that's the way that it's always been. And we've had plenty of people telling us that the deal's dead, the deal is dead, etc., etc. So I find the whole thing fascinating from that point of view, that people actually still follow that particular party line that gets spinned out on Twitter and on social media. But you know, we went down to London on Friday to talk about transparency. That's what we wanted. We wanted transparency. Amanda on the radio, everything that she said, the positivity that came out of it. I mean, that showed, if nothing else, how keen she is for this deal to remain alive, and they want to take over this football club and what they've got behind the scenes and what they're planning on doing as the new owners. Mike Ashley wants to sell to them, so everything there's right, everything there's in place. It's just the very fact that we've got this legal hurdle that needs to get over. And I think from my point of view, I'm sitting looking at this now and I'm saying, last October, Keith Patterson talked about CAT. In December, we were still talking about CAT. And I think that the phrase he uses, what the CAT we've got now is exactly the same as the CAT case that you started, except it's on steroids, Keith. That's the way that you described it. You know, this is way beyond where we were, and you were confident when you just had your case. So where it leads us now is we watch the clock. We watch dates, we watch for dates, we watch the clock, and we see what the Premier League has in store. Or more importantly, we see what the courts have in store.
Yeah. What do you feel about that, Keith? What Steve's just said?
I think that I do think my case would have won, and a top QC, not any inexperienced lawyer, is saying that. They try to put words in your mouth, saying we've never used the word slam dunk, but a top QC said to me that he thought 4 of the 7 points that we raised on the Premier League were strong enough to win. Each point was strong enough to win on its own merit. So yeah, I was extremely confident back then. Since then, the clubs had the benefit of being able to put their experience together, and they've been able to marry up time frames, and they've been able to add to our case an awful lot more points by adding in the experience they had of trying to get the passage through. Add to that the ESL thing raised its head and showed that a cartel was in operation, and that too was added to the case. So now the case is what we had on steroids, probably times 20. So it's a far more directed case, and I don't see anywhere in the world that the EPL defeated.
What's your views on that, Mitch?
Well, before I get on, poor Steve gets hammered on the lookalikes. He's got a sound alike now. No one would call you. He could be like Marcel Dassault as well, trapped in a box, you know. Anyway, look, it's a phrase that Keith's used to us, I think, on the show before, but certainly privately. Is the case now? The club have picked it up and run with it. It's the same case on steroids, and when you're getting legal advice from somebody who was at the top of that field, and he's saying, look, you got 7 points there and 4 of them are enough in their own to drive this across. It's no wonder there's a generated confidence in that. And I think it's frustrating to be in the hands of a court for all of this. But also, again, it comes back to what you were saying about the football review, is a statement that basically says this body can't govern itself, isn't competent to govern itself. And that's quite damning. And I think if this case goes as we all hope it does, I think that will come back and bite them on the backsides big time. And whilst the long term for the future of the game, that could be great for the club and our fan base, the last sort of 2 years in particular has been horrendous. And it's going to take a long time for the club, the fan base, and a lot of others to recover from that. And we just hope that we'll get the chance to make those shoots of healing as soon as possible once CAP gets rolling. And it comes back to this, Steve. Keith's been banging on at us for ages about how the cat's got to go first. It should go first. And now maybe we're seeing why it should, and understanding more about why it should. You know, I'm back in the same situation sometimes, listening to Keith and going through some of the legal things, where I was with Bill Corcoran at the Trust trying to explain things to us. And I feel like Father Dougal in the caravan with Father Ted, you know, these are small and that one's far away. And if your head's going, trying to take it all in, but then trying to get across to the fan base in terms that people can understand, and easy terms that people can understand about how I understand things run. And so, you know, this has the potential to change not just our football club, but the entire Premier League and the way it runs. Because, you know, we could find that indeed the suggestion from the fan review is the Premier League are not fit to run themselves.
Okay, it's nice that we get emails and stuff from supporters, and just a one which is from a guy called Andrew Gwynn, watches the show. He just says, I love the shows. They actually keep me sane with the ongoing pandemic and the on-off takeover. And whilst in this heat wave, I'm currently sweating a lot. He's laying a patio at the front of a police station, believe it or not. He's come up with a suggestion for a potential game that we can play on the show. I'll keep that under wraps, Andrew. Great suggestion. We'll definitely use that. He also says, P.S. Please tell Sir Keith that he's the new Ask Jeeves or Alexa in my book. He says, as he calms you down amongst all the turbo bullshit out there, much like the bear in Ted 2, saying that Morgan Freeman has a voice that he wanted a bed made from. He says, thank you all for maintaining a beacon of light in this time of general darkness, and here's to new owners, better times and bigger hopes and aspirations. Keep the faith, keep up the good work, one and all. And he says, best wishes, Andrew Gwynn, a Toon fan from South Wales, who feels like he's been doing a lifelong Crown Court community order following Newcastle United Football Club, though still bizarrely believes that we will lift silverware before we all pay the ferryman. Great idea. I'll keep that under wraps though, Andrew. Thank you very much for your letter. And I did have one a little bit, and we're not going to talk too much about the video that I put out yesterday. But I did get this one from Alan Redpath. An email from Alan Redpath. He says, I'm a Newcastle United supporter of over 60 years. I'm an ardent follower of your YouTube channel and a great believer in all you guys say, particularly regarding the takeover, please God. You have regularly referred to fan-based division. Personally, I don't recognise what you are talking about. We have 150,000 fans and probably 150,000 different opinions. It does not mean we are divided. It seems to me that those of you who have tried to do something about the sorry state of our club have got too close to it, to the extent it consumes you all. I have great regard for you all. You are wonderful. But when you all start ranting about division, you sound like a set of old wives. Honestly, get a grip. I'm 76 years of age, and I was on Twitter for 6 months. I'm an ardent Brexiteer, but I had to come off because of the vitriol. Keep up the good work, but get a life. Come off social media. Alan Redpath. That's from Alan Redpath, 76 years of age, telling us young'uns how to go on. Message received and understood. I'm afraid I'll have to stay on social media myself. But Alan, always great to get somebody writing in with a different slant and a different context on things. And I'm sure Andrew Gwyn's message to you, Keith, will go down well as well.
Andrew Gwyn, I just want to say that thank you, because in an average day, you see so much abuse, and with mine, it's targeted, and it's important, Andrew. What I've noticed is, and some of the solicitors that helped us have said this, is all of it's coming from people who eventually, one way or other, come out and say that they don't want the Saudi takeover, or they don't particularly want PCP. And when I've got a name like Newcastle Consortium Supporters, I'm knackered, because I've pretty much nailed my colours to the mast. But it's at times like this, when we get near the finishing game, or we get near the court case, which has been played out October, that I'm going to be an obvious target. And I think when I'm getting targeted, I give Steve Wraith a bit of space, because it's usually him. And then when he gets it, that gives me a quiet week. And at the minute, every time I go on, there's abuse. And what I notice is, the tactic is always to make lies up about this and say things I've never said, and I don't know why. I mean, that's a desperate thing to do, is to say somebody said something they never said. But I think what we've got to do now is get the case to run, get it started, and then just chill out. Because when that happens, you'll see me just back off some social media massively. I'll still do these shows out of the courtesy of the people who's been watching them and the people who's supported us. But somebody else said something today is why don't you? Someone said you've probably blocked more people. And I said, yeah. I said, can you imagine working for a year for nothing, no wages or nothing, and paying considerable monies out to listen to people abuse you? And so I'm not going to do that. And I have no conscience whatsoever in doing that to people who want to abuse us, because all I want is a takeover. And I have limited time because I'm on my own. So all I want to do really is listen to people who want a takeover. So that if it's 3% don't, I'm sorry, mate. You'll just have to go and talk to somebody else. But Andrew Gwyn, when I get calls like that, it's what keeps us going, and I really appreciate it. And if I could lay blocks, mate, I'd come down that police station, South Wales, and help me lay some. Thanks a lot.
He said he was sweating like a particular serial killer, but I'm not getting into that. I'll get accused of glorifying serial killers, so I'm not going to mention that, Andrew. I just want to say, guys, as well, Keith, Steve, you were there with me last Friday. Mitch was there in spirit, obviously still in lands too far away to come and support the protest, but did a lot of supporting from afar. Steve, come to you first, mate. Holly Blades, 16 years of age, young Newcastle United fan who, kindly offered to come onto our platform a few months ago to take part in Ladies' Night. She now does the show with me on a Monday night. What an inspiration to anybody in the younger end of our fan base after what she actually did last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, phenomenal young lady. I mean, we had the pleasure of being on the bus going down. I mean, we did have a number of conversations with her earlier in the week just to make sure she was okay. She was very keen to speak. There were one or two people that we thought could have got up and spoken among the group who had been involved in the organisation. We weren't involved in the organisation. We helped out with it, with advice and guidance. I think that's probably the best way to put it. If you can say some of the things that I've taken our advice, some people would say it was completely opposite, but that's probably another story for another day. But no, she was great. I mean, I knew that Holly had the ability to speak because I'd heard her on the shows. And I knew she had the self-confidence. What I was always worried about was that, when she got up in front of what was, and then we were being slagged off about even the number of people who turned up in London, but when she got up in front of the 10 Downing Street and spoke so well and so eloquently and got the point over so succinctly, you realise that this is a special young lady. There are probably dozens of other young ladies out there that might have wanted to have a shot at it at that particular time, but weren't around for it. But that's the way the cookie crumbles for them. I thought that Holly, she was there with her dad. I thought that she was very professional. She listened to the advice that the police gave. The police encouraged her to get to when we got to Downing Street, because there was excuse me, there was a lot of chatter about whether we could actually get to the gates. But I've got to say that the inspector who looked after us on the green and then followed us along to Downing Street was probably one of the most helpful Metropolitan Police officers you've ever seen. And for anyone who's ever spent any time in London, sometimes they can be very few and far between. But I thought they treated us well, and I thought they treated Holly. And I think we got a lot of respect because we had Holly there, because we had a young lady. And I remember that one particular point where when we got to Downing Street, and we just said, look, we just wanted to hand this letter over. And I think that the guy behind the screens was having none of it. And the inspector just insisted, you take the letter. I think at one point it was take the letter. It was like one of those game shows, And eventually he came out at Downing Street and the letter was handed over and passed on and whatever. But you know what? Whether Holly's 16 or 26 or 36, it makes no difference, because she speaks well. She speaks from the heart, and she's a black and white, and she's a supporter. And that's the most important thing. She had the confidence to do it. Nobody pressurized her into doing it. She wanted to do it. And well done to her. That's all you can say. Some people have criticized other people. Some people have criticized us for letting her speak. Well, what right have we got to not let that young girl get up and talk? We got no right at all to block that. What we had a duty to do was make sure that she had all of the support that she needed around her to get through the day, to get through that particular event. But if you'd been on the bus and you'd heard her talking on Talk Sport, which was a recorded message, which eventually got put out immediately after Amanda's so-called recorded, which went out live, you'd have had no qualms whatsoever in knowing that when the person you were traveling down was ultra confident in the words that she was going to use. And hats off to the girl. That's what I would say. Hats off to her. A superb performance. She summed up the feelings that we had as fans. As I say, what more can I say than what more praise can I give her?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Mitch, you watched from afar. What was your views on Holly?
I think it's wonderful to have somebody there who has the confidence at her age to stand up and do what she did, and demonstrates the change in face that the supporting base in Newcastle United over the years. As somebody who's gobshited quite a lot, you face certain things, people make certain assumptions about you. They still do with me now, because I've got a strong Geordie accent, I've had it in the past in my career. I've had it in the past at the Royal College of Surgeons in particular. Funny looks down the nose when this voice comes out, because it doesn't happen to have a silver spoon in its mouth. People make an assumption that you follow Newcastle United about what you are and who you are. That whole organisation of it, to have an articulate, peaceful process that was well done, and really showed the fan base in a fantastic light. But then to have spearheading it an articulate, brave young woman like Holly, I think she deserves every bit of praise for doing it that you can give her. It's good to know that the future of gobshitery in the fan base is in good hands. It's never easy to do anything like that. It would have been easy for any of you, but particularly you, the two Steves, to eventually crack and say, yeah, I guess the mate, we'll do it. because we've been there, we've done it, we've got the T-shirt, and the more you do it, the easier it gets. And so it would be easy if I was there for me to do it too. Just because we've done it. And so for somebody who really presented themselves so well and has done more since, by the way, for me, you know, you can't really put enough superlatives together for it. But I think also as a representing the evolution of the fan base at a time where there's been a lot of spotlight on the fan base throughout the whole takeover period. You know, we've been asked to be all sorts, from the moral arbiters of the game to the militant faction that'll bring the Premier League down. Well, you know, how are you, lads and lasses? Make your mind up what you want it to be. We're just being us, and we care about Newcastle United, and that came across in spades with Holly as well. I think the future for her is anything she wants it to be. Thank you for representing the fans so well.
Keith, you were down there. You got the chance to see Holly in action. You played your part. I think you were quite amazed at how many people were coming up and speaking to you, shaking your hand. And I think you needed that. I said this to Steve Hasty, when we were having a pint afterwards, after the day had finished, and just said, it was nice for you because you've lived in this social media bubble, really, with regards to this potential takeover, and you've had people patting you on the back, social media, but you've also had people having a pop at you. But it was nice to see people come up and actually shaking your hand and saying, "Thanks for writing that letter, Keith."
It was that letter. It was one of them days that we got up at 4:00 to go down. And they had a meeting in London before that, so I had to go down by car. But I was talking to the club at 11:10 the night before. I was on the phone 20 minutes and getting the heads up. And then to get down there on the morning, I went down with Peter in the car. And we were talking all the way down. And Peter said between leaving just before 5:00 and 8:30, and my head never come up. I was just doing emails and Twitter all the time. And when you got to London, you're 2 parts knackered, and you get there. And what struck me when I opened my eyes was what a positive, proactive, credible bunch of football supporters. And I mean, every man, woman, and child. And there was a lot of women down. There was younger people there, and they were just all a breath of fresh air. I just looked at the people who represented my football club that day. And I was just proud to be a part of it all. And when you come to me and say thank you, it's humbling, but it's like, it's not what I expect. So to me, what you're saying there about you and Steve in the pub, yeah, it did have an impact. And a couple of times I stepped back and got out the way a bit, because at times it was too much. And the people were just so kind, like kids. One young lad from Hartlepool, 18-year-old, can I get a selfie with you? And I'm thinking, what do you want a selfie with me for? And then another kid who posted on his timeline his pictures of me and him down in London. But then Holly, for Christ, they always say, whenever you see somebody of that stock, you usually see something that makes them. I met her dad, even here, 2:00 this afternoon. I got a message of Holly saying her dad said it was really nice to meet us and send things back. And then a minute before we come on air to do this, me message, I was talking to Holly. So in the time we waited for Mitch to get online, I would just sit and chat to Holly. And she apologised for asking questions. And I said, Holly, I says, never apologise for asking questions. It's only when you listen that you really do learn things. I've learned a lot of things of what I've seen in my life and what I've touched and what I've smelt. I says, but invariably I learn most when I listen. And the one thing about you is you're a great listener. And you ask the right questions. And she never fails to thank you when she asks things, but she asks some brilliant questions. So it doesn't surprise me when she starts speaking that you're so good. But I went up to her at the end and I said, I've got a daughter. I says, it's older than you. And I says, she's been trained to speak in public. And if she just done what you've just done, I've just been so mega proud. And I said to her, Dad, you must be so proud of what she's just done, because it was a passion. She had so much passion, so much self-belief in the subject she was talking about. She didn't look like somebody that was just there to make a name for herself. She didn't look like somebody that was just wanting to have a 5 minutes of fame. She looked somebody who wanted to die for Newcastle United. And the kid was just outstanding. And I say kid because she's a lot younger than my daughter. She's 16, And the thing that infuriates us is, yes, have a pop at Steve Wraith. Yes, have a pop at Keith Patterson. Because we made a strong stuff. But for God's sake, Newcastle fans, remember this is a 16-year-old bairn. So if you want to have a pop at her, come at me. Because I thought that day she put everybody to shame, including me. She stood up and she was 16 going on 66. She had charisma, she had vigour, she had panache, she had quality. And everything she said just made the hair stand up the back of your neck. She just made you proud to support Newcastle United. She talks to me more than ever, whether it's WhatsApp, text, everything. And she's one of the few people that trusts with me details. And every time she talks to us, I feel as though I get something out of the conversation. I feel there's somebody who's totally grateful for what she's done. If she's the future Newcastle, us old people should fight for it to give them people a heads up. But the whole crowd that went down on that day, bow, take a curtsy, look in the mirror and tell yourself you did your club proud, because it was a great crowd of people that went down. It was a fantastic event. Anybody that knocks it, it just never went. And to you, Holly, hats off to you, girl. You were brilliant.
And if you're sitting at home going, who's Holly Blades? Well, she's on Monday night with me. Every Monday we do the Steve and Holly show. Always good crack. And yeah, it was fantastic to get down to York City with Holly and her dad. Thanks to a good friend of mine for sorting some tickets out for them, because they had missed out on tickets. And it was a great day out, had by all, spoilt, as always, by the football.
Any truth in the rumour it's being changed to the Holly and Steve show?
It probably has to be. It probably has to be. I will have no arguments with that at all, Steve. No arguments whatsoever. As always, the first part of the programme has gone on and on and on, and we're probably going to have to cram everything now into the second half of the show. But I'm sure that those people won't be too bothered about that, because they do enjoy watching this one, Steve Hasty. Now, to be honest, because Steve hasn't been too well this week, I think the general public has decided not to have such a pop at Steve Hasty.
Right.
That is good news. That is good news. I think there's been a lot more kindness towards Steve this week, and certainly people walking on eggshells. So there is quite a few to get through, as always. We'll start with this one from Gav Roundtree, wondering what Keith Patterson was doing on this morning television.
No laughing out here, Steve. No laughing.
Loud.
He also then had a pop at Steve Hasty, of course, by saying that there's Steve Hasty looking ready for a night out. I've got no idea who that is. Who is it?
I've got no idea.
I've got no idea. I hope you're not taking photograph of random people in the street, Gav. But thanks for your suggestions. I got this one from Mr. Anderson. He says, "Tune lookalike Steve Wraith defending the tune on TalkSport." That was after my little battle with Simon Jordan this week. Thanks for that, Mr. Anderson. I like this one from Lee Girdlestone. Andy Carroll and Terry Silver from Karate Kid.
Oh, yeah. I can actually see that one.
Yeah.
That's quite good. I like the graphics as well, Lee. So if you're going to send any more, I quite like that. Bit of organisation. Yep. Okay, on to this one. That was from Karen Choke, Lee, Vin Diesel and Keith Patterson.
That'll do for me. Superstar.
From that to what Richard Fleming thinks. No. Telly Savalas. Who loves you, Keith Patterson?
Oh, loves you, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Richard Fleming, that's quite a good one. He needs the shades.
He's good over you, Stevie. He's good over you.
It could be, yeah. I would play it. Telly Savalas is a great actor. I would quite happily settle for that. I can't remember who sent us this, but thank you anyway. Steve Bruce and Joe Kinnear.
That's good, that. It's really good.
That's close.
I think that's really good.
Yeah, very good. And I see the really well. They went for the smile as well, didn't they? They've got the teeth out and everything. It's pretty good, that, yeah. Pretty good. Steve Bruce's nose has seen better days, of course. Back to Keith. No, this one's me. Terence Ross, good to see you last Friday. He says, "Tune lookalike lead singer from James, and guess who? Steve Wraith." Yeah, very good. That's probably a better version of something that we got sent previous, but thanks, Terry. And this one was doing the rounds early last week. Steve Hasty and Bruno Brooks.
Right.
That's pretty good, Steve, isn't it?
No.
Oh, no. You know what I get from these, Steve, is you need to have a few more photographs taken. Yeah, maybe different hairstyles, just so people can continue with this. We had this one sent by Daz, the Mags on Twitter. He just says, for some reason, he decided to put Keith Patterson in his right said Fred. He's got you in his both images there. Thank you for that. Okay, we're down to the last two. And I'm pleased to say, Steve, you're not in the top two.
Oh, dear me.
So, in second place, from Tom Lynch. Soon look alike for next week. New keeper shirt, not Dubravka himself, and a can of bar raspberry aid.
That's brilliant.
Very
I saw some of them in one of the shops that gets the British stuff in over here, and they wanted £9.50 for a can of raspberry aid. Bloody outrageous!
Wow, unbelievable.
It's over
two.
250.
So Tom Lynch, thanks for that one.
Well done, Tom.
This isn't in the top two. I've just forgotten about this. We'll squeeze this one in because we'll always get Albert in. Albert always likes to do some kind of. And the three amigos as the Bee Gees playing in a game of hide the sausage. So that's me, Mitch, and Steve Hasty as the Bee Gees. No sign of Keith Patterson on that one, so he's quite happy. Okay, that wasn't in the top two. Here is your winner this week. From Michael Barlow. Lookalikey, Richard Masters and a horse's arse. If you stare long enough at the horse's arse, you can just about see that.
I've got the mouth.
That is an absolute classic. Well done, mate. Nice for Steve Hasty as well. Not to be in the firing line as much. That is your tune lookalike for this week. Keep them coming in. Send them to me, Keith Patterson or Mitch. Don't send them to Steve because it'll spoil the fun on a Friday. But
come on, either.
exactly. But yeah, thanks. Keep them coming in. I've got to say as well, tweet of the week. Before we get to that, is quite extensive tonight. Quite a few tweets came in this week. More tweets of the week than lookalikes. So that is interesting, and we will come to them in due course. Just want to talk a little bit about football, lads. And obviously we got our first game out the way, Keith, against York City. I was down there. It was 28 degrees. I mean, I was down with John from QTech, actually, and he went down to get a pie at half time, came back, and the pie was hotter when I'd left it to cool down in the stand for 10 minutes. So it was that hot. And what it was like to play football, well, you know, it was extreme to say the least. I've got to be honest. What I put out there on Twitter was very simple. That it was a game to blow the cobwebs out. It was our first friendly. You know, I felt we lacked a little bit sharpness in some places. I think we were poor with free kicks and corners. It lacked that touch of Graham Jones finesse that we had at the back end of the season. We were missing Willock, of course, and. You know, the rest of it, well, yeah, you could pick out certain players. Jacob Murphy, it was quite clear that he'd been in training for a few weeks longer than everybody else. Matt Ritchie was his usual energetic, tenacious self, but he's a year older. You know, Dan Langley, the goalkeeper, couldn't criticise the kid apart from the goal. 6'7", you shouldn't be getting beaten with a looping header like that. But all in all, it was a good day out. You know, Newcastle, though, need to be, you know, massively improved when they face Doncaster tonight. What's your view on the playing side so far? Because the longer this takeover farce gets dragged on, the less chance I feel that we're going to have of bringing in players. And we do clearly need players to come in. Even if it's just Willock comes in on another loan deal, we need that done and over the line.
Where do you start? Graham Jones, if he didn't come last season, I feel would have gone down. So that's how big I think the miss he is. People go on about who we're going to buy and this, that, that. We scrambled home last year. And so I've got no clout and I've got no ability to ask people about signings that would listen to us. You know, every time I talk to people, I pass on my thoughts. But I wonder whether they listened to after I've left. And so now we need another striker to support Wilson. We need a midfield player. We need creativity, and we need a couple of defenders. And now you four might say, well, we also need a keeper as what's up for Africa. But my head is back where we were pre-Graham Jones signing, where we just didn't seem to have a plan. So when I heard about, when I think about York and we think they've got Rotherham and then Burton coming up, we need some signings. We need some young blood, and we need a striker to join what we've got. Because I listened to Henry Winter today, and he said somebody said, "Do you think Newcastle's got a good side?" And he's talking about the odds in the Premier League. And no doubt, if our man from Middlesbrough comes on, you're talking about relegation, and you've got the three that came up first of all, followed by Crystal Palace, Burnley, and then us. We are sixth favourites to go down. So the comfort is we've got us, Palace, and Burnley, who fought last year. And to be fair, Palace has started spending well already, and Burnley under Dyche always seem to be able to do it. So I can only hope that Graham Jones is going to take a forceful position and be given his head. But for me, it might take us 6 months into the season for Bruce to realise he's nothing without Jones. I don't know. But Newcastle need to make signings. And so I'm worried again. And Henry Winter does have a soft spot for us in his article today. I listened to his podcast today. He says Newcastle shouldn't be in the bottom six and should be sixth favourite to go down. So I'm worried.
What about you, Steve? I mean, I mentioned it right at the top of the programme. It's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, it is. And you're right, Keith. What Henry said, Newcastle United shouldn't be looking at the bottom six. That's Newcastle United as a football club. Newcastle United FC. Not when you look at the playing side and when you look at the way that we performed last season and you look at the lack of anything coming in this season, then quite honestly, you can't see us being in the bottom six. That's the way I'm looking at it. There's certainly new blood needed. Every team needs to be refreshed every season in certain positions. Players get a year older. Players have lost their year of interest. Players are unhappy. Other players are unhappy because they haven't been getting into teams. Agents are always hovering there or thereabouts, trying to move their clients on. So it is always a revolving door. But Newcastle's revolving door just seems to go around like one tick at a time, doesn't it? It just takes so long. And I always fascinated this. One of my bugbears is the transfer window and how everything happens in the last few days. And I kind of understand it for professional football clubs that are operating at the manner that they should. I can never understand why a club waits until the very end to do their business. Whether it's a game of bluff that they play or they think they're playing, or whether it's to save a month's salary or whatever, but it cannot be right. It cannot be right that you would wait until the very last moment to bring someone into a squad that relies on how well you're going to integrate that squad. The whole idea of a closed season is A, to get fit, and B, to be integrated, ready to go 100 miles an hour when the first game of the season starts. And why allow yourself to throw that advantage that you have out of the window straight away? And it just baffles me. It really, really does. But we do it time and time and time again. And yet we hear the same old patter that, we've got targets that we're looking at, that we're always looking 3 windows in advance, and et cetera, et cetera. I've heard it time and time and time again from the club. And yet that they're going to then take you to the wire before they sign someone. And then if they do manage to get someone signed, then everybody goes, oh, great. I mean, it was the same with Wilson last season, wasn't it? Waiting until the start of the season almost before he comes through the door. Yeah. And you're thinking, well, why didn't that happen in the June? Why didn't it happen in the May or whenever the season finished? If you want to operate as a top class football club, then you should be getting your business done at the business side of it,
I'll give you an answer. And Rafa gave you the answer a few years ago.
He did.
Agents. They want to control the transfers to get the maximum out for their client and themselves. And they're quite happy for bidding wars to happen and things to happen at the last minute, because the people that are truly in control of the money go around between clubs when it comes to transfers at this moment in time, and I bet even more so at this moment in time, are the agents, unfortunately, because they're the only ones that benefit out of this.
Yeah, but now you're getting us into an argument or into a discussion about something that happened on Thursday with the governance of football and an opportunity to actually drive a coach and horses right across the way that football run and operated. And that would have been one of the things, or should be one of the things, that we should be hearing, that we're going to relook and have an absolute ripping apart of the way football agents now dominate football and dominate what is a multi-billion-pound business. And none of that money stays within the game. I mean, a perfect example is the way that the revolving door that's now going to occur at Wolverhampton Wanderers, that will probably involve a certain club in Italy, will involve a certain manager in Italy, will involve a certain manager now down at a London club, with signings that are coming in that are now heading to Spain, that are now owned by, and so it goes on. And you see how clubs are being manipulated by agents who have sort of, I was going to say ingratiate themselves. They haven't, they've embedded themselves in football clubs.
Absolutely.
You know, we talk about super agents, but these guys are way beyond super agents. You know, this is way beyond the Raiolas of this world in terms of, you know, deciding where Paul Pogba's going to go and how much ridiculous amount of money people are going to spend on him. You know, it's way beyond that. It's a joke. It's a farce. And that's the sort of thing that, if you're going to govern football, that you need to be looking at. Not just the price of pies, or not just some of the other governance issues, a lot of which I have a lot of time for. But let's get into the nitty gritty as well. But no, in terms of Newcastle, yes, Keith is absolutely right. And the fact that we've got a goalkeeping crisis reminds me very much of last season as well.
Yeah, I would agree. Mitch, it's Groundhog Day. No doubt about it.
Well, here we are. Here we are again. It's the 100 metres Olympic final, and the gun's gone, and we're tying my shoelaces. You know, and we seem to do this year after year. We're handicapped ourselves. We've got even more uncertainty over budget and incomings and outgoings, and not having Jones around as a result of the Euros. That's probably hampered we're a little bit as well. I don't get too upset about friendly results, because the only results that matter are the league results. It's when those friendly performances turn into something like what, for example, happened a few years ago at Leyton Orient, when the players then sorted everything out because it was that bad. We don't want it to get to that point. We want to see signs that things are going in the right direction. And let's not forget, Mike Ashley, yet again, is missing out on a duty of care that he has to protect his assets and keep this football club running. But the ghost ship that is Newcastle United under Mike Ashley views anything above bottom three as success in many ways. And we've said this time and time again. And whilst we're keen to assist them out the door, that doesn't mean we forget about the lack of care that the first team squads had over a 10-year period, the lack of care that the clubs had over a 10-year period. And we can go on and on about all of those things. This is why history repeats itself, because nothing changes. Every season, it's the same. And the definition of madness is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting a different result. And it is madness. I would hope to see in the friendly tonight that there's progress. That's all I would want to see out of this. Not having the goalkeepers around is exceptionally disruptive. I've got no doubt about that. You know, and the reason that the goalkeepers are not around being disruptive too, because that's something that potentially, thankfully, it looks like we've got away with, that it's been contained to one player and one group of players. But that's something that could decimate a squad. And it's not just us making a mess of pre-season. I mean, look, Arsenal's folly idea of doing a US tour that suddenly had to be cancelled, and they're now scratching around trying to arrange fixes here and there where they can. It makes us reassured that it's not just us that's challenging for the fuckwit title of the pre-season, because there are other stupid things happening elsewhere in the Premier League, thank God. But we need to see just a bit of progress, something positive. We need some sort of positivity on the transfer front, although I still remain confident that we're going to see something on there, because it would be foolish of Mike Ashley to do nothing while all of this is happening, because again, the only way he gets the sale price he wants is with us as a Premier League team. Let's not forget that. And I don't think he's that stupid. I think he's many things, but I don't think he's that stupid.
Yeah,
the signing of Willock would be monumental, I think, in this current climate. Signing Willock would be
a massive boost to the fan base.
Even on loan.
A mood shift.
Yeah,
you'd see a mood shift, a serious mood shift, and I actually think that's what we should be looking at: is loan, possibly with an agreed deal at the end of the term, because we might have some more financial certainty at that point. To blow the entire transfer budget on Willock now would be, I think, foolish. But if we're going to secure him on loan again with a deal at the end of that year, I'd be very happy with that. I think then that'll allow to look to address a couple of other areas. You see that our prime centre-back target was the lad from Celtic who's now suddenly off to Brentford. And if that's the level that we can't compete at, that's a shame. It's embarrassing, really. But such seems to be the weird world in Newcastle United.
Yeah, that was a 17 million, a £7.5 million deal that turned into a £13.5 million deal, Mitch. Don't forget that.
Right.
What we've actually seen this week, I read an excellent article. I think it was I read it this morning by Scott Wilson in the Echo, which brought a few things home, which was basically, Mike, you've got to remember, you still own a football club. You still own a football club. It's going to be part of the Premier League. Don't forget. Just don't get deflected. And I thought it was very well worded. I thought it was very well put together.
Yes.
And that in itself just brings back home to you, because we've all concentrated on things like the takeover, etc. And we've all been wrapped up in arbitration and cats and dogs and you name it. But that article by that particular newspaper and that particular writer and reporter, I thought was superb, and it bring home. Yeah, there's still a football club here. Don't forget, we're still in a competition. We might think the competition is slanted, but it's an asset, Mike. Don't forget, you still own. It's a big asset of yours, and that asset is deteriorating. Just like it did last season, and the same thing's going to happen. You want to keep the fans on board, then you should be doing something very, very much so to keep those fans on board, because at the end of the day, the lifeblood in Newcastle United is what happens on the football pitch. That's what will keep us in the Premier League. No matter who the manager is, it's the results that matter, and the results come from a decent squad, decent organisation, commitment, and a mentality that you're all winners, and that all of those have to be taken in to this season, and those players in that squad have got to carry that in spades, quite frankly, because it'll only take a couple of results to not go our way, especially when that stadium is starting to fill up again after COVID. And then you'll see a red hot atmosphere at St. James's Park. You can guarantee that. And it'll not be the red hot that you want. It'll be red hot coals. That's what everybody's going to be sitting on. And there's an awful lot difference between the start of this season and the start of last season. There's no hiding place come the middle of August. There's no hiding place at St. James's Park anymore if the fans are allowed back in. And the fans have had 18 months of not being through that door if you take away one game when it was limited and there was nothing really to play for. So
I'm still being blamed for stuff.
Oh, yes.
I know.
If Mitch is right, he's got 10 million in the kitty, and Mitch brings a brilliant point up. Why would you spend that? Blow that on Willock, whatever, it'll be that plus, but Why would you do that? It makes more sense to sign them on a loan period with an option to buy. So when a takeover comes, we can bring him in. In the meantime, use that modest kitty to even signing on fees for people on loan deals. You know, because sometimes if you want a quality signing on fee, sometimes you pay $2 million fee just to get a player to come for a season. But to me, I'd rather have some short termism. I'd rather, you know, I know I'm an idealist, but I'd rather give Graham Jones his head now that come on, his CV. He's worked with Belgium, he's worked with England, and he ain't done bad. And he made a difference at Newcastle. So give him his head. Use that 10 million for sign, and use this year for loan players. If Mike actually doesn't want to, do layouts for 10 and 20 million pound players, let's bring people to the club, because I just don't think with that kind of budget we're going to be in the ballpark to buy people that's going to change that squad. I mean, there are still some good players in that squad. You know, you got St. Maxim, you got the likes of, and I mean even Richie. You talk about him saying Matt Ritchie, he's a good player, and he's got pedigree. And he didn't come for a small fee, and you're still going to need to put a good player in to take him out the side. So what I'm saying here is, if you look at the people we're going to get, I think we'll get one player with 10 million that could maybe get on that side. But I think if you use it wisely and get 4 or 5 loan signings and a couple of young ones in, I think that's the way we've got to do it.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, let's get on to another one of our weekly favourites. It is... You've got cat on the brain, Keith. No the wonder, though. No the wonder. Okay, it's Tweet of the Week, where Steve and I go through a selection of tweets that have been sent in by people, and quite an inbox full this week. And also we've picked up on a few as well. That's the first one, and we've already talked about Holly this week, Steve.
Yeah, and what a lovely, the fact that me and Dad took time out to actually put that up himself. A little message to Holly. Watch you speak, Holly. Not only have you done yourself and your family proud, but Amanda and I, I'm sure every Newcastle supporter is proud of you. Well done and thank you. A lovely message, from a prospective owner of Newcastle United, to put that up on social media regarding a supporter. I thought that was lovely. That was a beautiful gesture, a lovely tweet, and well deserved for Holly. Okay, great stuff. I thought this was quite funny. This one was from Kenny Wharton Sits on the Ball. He was responding to NUFC 360's tweet where they said that Newcastle's recruitment team have been told that they've got a budget of 10 million this summer, likely to be spent on one player, plus at least 2 loan deals. It said they want a left-sided centre-back and 2 midfielders. They were reporting that from the Daily Mail, of course. Kenny Wharton Sits on the Ball said, like Steve Wraith auditioning for Rapunzel with a handful of feathers. That conjured up all sorts of images in my head. I don't know, but I'm sure Keith Patterson's head was spinning at that one. It was like Ken Dodd. He had me tickled. We don't always have football related stuff on. There is the odd thing going on in the world other than the Newcastle takeover, of course. And Metro Radio News put this one up, Steve. Yes, was it saying man stuck with 1,000 free Britney t-shirts after a spelling mistake. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, Britney Spears, of course, going through a big court case to get her life back, essentially. Another bizarre court case running. But the guy who did the t-shirts had actually spelled Britney wrong. Brittany, of course, being a place rather than a person. So I did like that one. This one was a rather painful one, Steve, from Graham Longdon. Yeah, you'll have to read that one out, Steve. I haven't got my specs. I've left them in the other room and removed them. He said, I don't usually take a week to go red, then immediately go back to goth white, except my left foot, which is two-tone since burning it in the train as in France. So basically, he's got a fully white foot there and burnt the rest of his ankle and foot going into his train. I've got to be honest, I saw a few of those kind of photographs over the course of the weekend. This one could have been lookalikey, but I felt it was more appropriate to go into the tweets this week from Deddy Bin Salman. He says, can you read that one, Steve? Yeah, no wonder we lost against York. We can't let Donald Trump manage NUFC. Please get Steve Bruce back as soon as possible, please. Look alike.
Now, what he was actually referring to there, I actually took a photograph when I was down at York Stadium, the LNER Stadium, and that was Steve Bruce there. I mean, in typical coaching fashion, hands in his pockets,
Players behind him.
Donald Trump cap on, facing the completely opposite way. That was the first drinks break in the first half, and I'm sure the lad gained a lot of knowledge from that. I'm not sure what maybe he was looking for Graham Jones to come back, but that is baffling. Yeah, baffling that is, that was the relevance of that tweet. Okay, we have this one from Chris Taylor. Now, Chris obviously is referring to a pretty green shirt that I have on. And he says, it's like one of those patterns you look at when you go to the opticians to see if you're colourblind. Always said Mr. Wraith is the height of fashion. What year he's at the height of fashion, I really don't know, but still. And it's in reference to that shirt that I had on for the York City game, actually. And Wayne Bennett decided to send us a picture of a pair of curtains. Thanks for that, Wayne. I did get that, mate. I did get the memo. Okay, Steve, this was on Football Away Days Insta this week.
Yes, that was classic, wasn't it? Don't be embarrassed to wear a face mask. I've seen people wearing Sunderland shirts in public.
Clear COVID message there from the football lads on Insta. This one was from Jonathan B. Personally, he says he blames Steve Wraith. He says, sorry, Steve, most unfair of me, but I couldn't resist. And that was pick up your free copy of the weekend paper, which... essentially looks like a cock the way that the paper runs down, which I thought was quite funny. This one is impossible for Steve to read, but I think I can get through that one. Now this one was Martinelli, NUFC Takeover, still alive and kicking. Hope is a walking dream, Aristotle, and you can see there that in a pint glass we have a magpie having a sup of lager. So I thought that was a little bit of Nick DeMarco-esque kind of photography there from whoever took that photograph. This one, Steve?
Yeah, Money Mike Ashley, one of our favourites on Twitter. Always keep giggling. Special thanks to Sky Sports News for choosing to cover Neymar's new haircut over the fan protest today. Next time any of their Northeast presenters or reporters pretend to have any clout over that station, tell them where to go. Cheers. And they did. They made a right song and dance, didn't they? While we're down in London over Neymar's haircut.
I like this. Yeah.
Wayne Bennett sent us this one, given to a Middlesbrough fan for a stag do, Steve. And we've seen this before, haven't we, somewhere?
We have, but absolute classic. Poor lad from Borough. He has to wear a half Newcastle, half Sunderland shirt on his stag do. I mean, we've seen half and half shirts before. I think Kevin Keegan made the red and white, black and white shirt half and half in the very first Great North Run, didn't he? In '81. But I think Kevin graced it a little bit better than that poor chap did on that particular bus. And I'm sure that he's even got the socks, hasn't he? They've even given him a red and white sock. Yeah. So they've really gone to town. They've really thought about it. Poor lad. You know, that would be your ultimate nightmare, wouldn't it?
Yeah, this one was from WLSN Music, and this one to Arsenal News, who for some reason decided to have a pop at me. At least it wasn't Newcastle fans this time, but he did talking about the interview that I had with Simon Jordan. He said he could have done it naked, referring to me, wearing a teddy bear head whilst holding a banner of Tommy Robinson, and it still wouldn't have been anywhere near as embarrassing as Arsenal fans TV. So thank you to WLSN Music for jumping in my defence, mate. Much appreciated. I noticed that the guy never came back after that comment, so clearly had the desired effect. Miles Starforth put this one out. Rafa Benitez on the prospect of a return to Newcastle before he took the Everton job. I was following them when I was in China. I was in contact with a lot of people. I was expecting maybe something will happen. It didn't. That's it. And Rafa fans, of course, replying to that by saying, so Liam Kennedy, Steve Wraith and NCSL were telling the truth, with a little tick there. So thank you to Rafa fans for that, for just pointing out that we don't mislead people on this show. Andrew here, he again put this one out. He said, well done for the protest NUFC for yesterday. The protest was a prime example of what Newcastle fans can do when united behind a cause. This is the kind of event I would encourage and sponsor if I was elected for the NUFC Trust Board. NUFC Takeover. And Mark Wallace's reply was, well, the problem is, Andrew, that the other board members wouldn't back you. I'll leave that to Mark. And finally, with this one today, Gaza, list of goalkeeping options for Doncaster tonight, for Newcastle, Kevin Brock, Chris Waddle, Peter Beardsley, Chris Hedworth, and of course, John Burridge. That's how desperate it is a minute. But good luck to Dan Langley again in nets tonight. Let's hope he keeps a clean sheet for the foreseeable until the lads get back. But that is your tweets of the week.
When we heard you were going down, Steve, we thought you were planning on playing in goal after your performance in Goal, the movie, standing in for Mr. Bartes. I must admit, we're not looking forward with that one.
I think I might do a little bit better than that these days. I was carrying a bit of a kite on them days, but yeah, you never know. I'm here if the gaffer needs us. A couple of adverts, of course. Need to plug Shamble Travels. They are now taking bookings not only for Burton on Friday the 30th, which of course is a week today, but they're also taking bookings for the Rotherham game on Tuesday, and it is £30. 1:30 departure from the juries in Newcastle. £30 for Rotherham and £30 for Burton. 1:30 departure from the juries in. Give Amanda a ring on 077 914 1779. And also a quick plug for some of the events we've got coming up. I'll be at the Farmhouse Kitchen with Super Mac on the 19th of August. Tickets are £10. Get in touch with the Farmhouse Kitchen. You can find them on all forms of social media. And time is ticking even closer as well for the event with me and Liam at Bobix, which you can get along to, which is Thursday, the 5th of August. All proceeds, of course, going to the food bank. That is the old Punch Bowl in Jesmond. And that is www.bobix.com for tickets, which are £10. I know Steve Hasty will be coming along to that, Bill Corcoran. It is a food bank event, so you'll get a chance to meet a few of the people from NUFC Matters. And me and Liam will be talking Newcastle United. I'm sure there'll be a few bits and bobs going on as well. Look forward to that. Big shout out, as always, to the sponsors, Spider VPN, for all your internet security. Google Spider VPN, they come up at the top of the search list, and they can help protect your computer from unwanted access, and also protect your passwords, your photographs, and anything else you have on there. Big shout out as well to one of our other main sponsors, skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. And website is www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Big thanks to Scott and to Sir Bobby for all their sponsorship over the last month. And big shout out to John at qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle. And also to John at Jab Signature, who makes all of our flyers. If you're a first-time visitor to the channel, please subscribe. We've had over another 150 new subscribers this week. Hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and that's it. You have subscribed for free. We still do 7 shows a week, and plenty of extra content as well. Hit the thumb up to like the video tonight. That does do us a big favour. Click share to share to your social media, and drop into the comments box to chat with like-minded Newcastle fans. Don't forget as well, the Matchday Bucket is still operational throughout the summer. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk. Make a donation to the food bank bucket, and you go into the prize draw to win this one-off watch, which the winner will be announced at the pool night, which is Friday the 6th of August at the Spot White Pool Club. It's 24-hour charity pool night organised by John from QTech, raising valuable funds again for NUFC fans food bank. So looking forward to seeing some of you guys there as well. And also, John has been busy on the website. He has launched a couple of new T-shirts, including the London Calling range, which has got the likes of Rob Lee and Les Ferdinand on, and also Over the Wall range with the the likes of Ryan Taylor on. Saturday's kids t-shirt as well with the Geordie contingent of Lee Clark, Steve Howie, and many more. So get yourself onto the website, www.nufcmatters.com. Unfortunately for Joe, it's a pre-record and he works at this time. So I'm afraid the Tunes Tipster is back to doing a video. Here he comes.
Evening all. Toon Tipster here with his predictable return to the subs bench. One run out, fantastic performance, played a blinder, brought an additional 100 fans to the channel. Next week, I'm dropped from the squad. This week, I'm back on the bench. Honestly, Steve Bruce has got more of a clue than these four clowns. Anyway, you'll be pleased to know that I got back safe and sound from my recent trip to London with me dad. I brought him along because I thought old Keith would have been too busy to hard to manage on my own. Anyway, I did notice he got a bit excited every now and again, but he made it through, so fair play to him, fair play to him. As a proud member of the NHS, I have to let you know that I wore my mask all throughout the day. Nothing to do with the pandemic. I was just petrified that Spenny Mag would have done a beer fart on the bus. He'd have wiped us all out. Anyway, I've got to say before we get on to the prices that it was absolutely fantastic in London last week. Fabulous to meet some NUFC Matters family, the fans that travelled down there. Wonderful, wonderful people and a wonderful day to be had by all. Really made me proud to be a Newcastle United fan. Some wonderful stories on the bus on the way down from Mr. Hasty. Mr. Wraith looking like he simply belongs in London, baby. And Keith, I'll do anything to get on the telly Patterson, doing nout but laugh all the way through it. I thought Mitch might have turned up like, calls himself a fan. Anyway, the bit that worried me about the day, there was a funny fella on the bus that kept offering me sweets and talking about tips and balls. Evening, Q-Tech. Anyway, I wanted to start on the prices with an absolute odds-on favourite that I think you should all put your life savings on. I've got to say that Holly Blades will go a long, long way in whatever she does. Fantastic girl. What an effort. Absolutely brilliant. She did everybody extremely proud. So if you're watching, Holly, thank you, mate, and you take a bow this week. In a week that's been really quiet for NUFC, with the highlight being a fight on the radio between a self-righteous idiot who the fan base can't stand, a real pompous prick with a terrible fashion sense, and some bloke called Simon Jordan, I thought I'd highlight some interesting pre-season prices for the Mags. I must warn you folks, this is absolutely not good hearing. Start with a positive. To be top at Christmas, we're going to be 500 to 1. Bottom at Christmas, 6 to 1. Not to finish in the top 4 is a ridiculous 1 to 750. There's no chance of Patterson winning in court, I'm telling you. Not to be relegated, 1 to 3. To be relegated, 11 to 4. 6 to 1 to finish bottom. 25 to 1 to finish top 6. 6 to 1 top half. 500 to 1 to win it. 80 to 1 to finish in the top 4. If you think that this takeover's coming and you think that this takeover's coming fast and it'll bring Grealish, Kane and all his mates with him, 500 to 1, 80 to 1, I might be living in cuckoo land. I think I've spent too long with Keith Patterson, but maybe worth a fiver of anybody's money. In terms of goal scorers, our new number 9 is 50 to 1 to be top scorer in the league. And I have to say, just out of pure interest, if you fancy Big Joe to suddenly turn into a footballer and find the net, it's 150 to 1. Anyway, I'll get back to the training ground for next week and see if I can come on and make a performance. If my 100 fans want to follow me over to mine and Ben's show, we'll be on TalkSport tomorrow telling Simon Jordan how incredible he is. Anyway, love you all. Bet safe. Based on them prices, keep your money in your pocket. Hopefully things will change when I'm...
Great stuff as always from Joe, and he certainly doesn't leave any of us out, does he, with the criticism?
No, he's great, isn't he? Absolutely great. It was great to meet him last week as well on the bus, and have a good chat with him. He's smashing bloke.
He's awful. He's horrible.
I'm his number one fan now. I tell you,
well, he would be. He's backside.
With us doing this on Thursday night, there is a little bit of speculation which might, turn into something and might not. But the Northern Echo are going with a line about Mario Lemina deal being close. Of course, he is a midfielder. There is talk of a possible swap deal for Isaac Hayden. We know that they've been quite keen on taking Hayden to Southampton. So, not sure what you guys think of that. Keith, is that something which you would be happy with?
I won't play it in, but I'm not too sure where Hayden out. I think he's been one of our better players. And then, I think he's, when you're getting clubs like Southampton taking players that's not for sale, that worries us because we're bigger and better than this. But when I see things like that, I start feeling like a small club. It's disappointing, really. The kind of money you're going to generate doing that isn't going to change any budget or any business plan. So Isaac Hayden, with the squad we've got, I think he's one of them that stands up and is being counted. And John Joe Shelby, let him go anytime he wants. Hendrick, bundle them up and package them together. Great, you know what I mean? And I'm not bothered who they go to, and bother how much you get for them. But you don't sell the Haydens of the world. There's about 6 or 7 people there that you desperately need to keep over to stay up. So, and to me, I'd put Hayden in that group.
Steve?
Always wary of a story that starts off with a player being valued at 4 million, who within 48 hours has been valued at 8. Always raises the eyebrows, to be perfectly honest. And that's what I saw earlier today. Newcastle interested, £4 million. This morning it's Newcastle interested, Southampton saying they want £8 million. Is it just column inches? Who knows? I agree with Keith. You don't swap the likes of Isaac Hayden on a deal like that for a player at Southampton. At least not that particular player. There's probably other players at Southampton that you might consider using Isaac Hayden as a make weight if that's what you have to do. But for me, Isaac Hayden is an integral part of our squad, and I would hate to lose him.
Definitely.
Yeah, Mitch, same from you, I guess.
Pretty much. I mean, the other thing with Hayden going out, it removes another option at centre back. when we've sent another centre back out as well. I know Hayden had some family issues that meant he wanted to be back down south a couple of years ago. Whether those issues are lingering and it's a deal that suits the player too, you don't know. And then we'll come back to what we were talking about earlier about a very meagre transfer budget. Then the way to stretch a transfer budget is to do swaps as well as and be inventive with it, So if it's a deal that suits everybody, I kind of get it, but it's not. I don't see that as being a swap in our favour personally. No. I would like to be proved wrong. It doesn't excite me. That's for sure. But maybe we've all just got to be a little bit, and to use the phrase Keith used earlier, a little bit, understand the short-termism a little bit, perhaps. But yeah, if Hayden's involved in that swap, I'd like to know, is there a deeper reason behind that other than just the fact that we're desperate to stretch that transfer budget out as far as possible?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things develop on that score. Julie Baker, I haven't forgotten. Busy, busy, busy. We had a quiet spell, but we've been attacked left, right, and centre this week. And normally I'd just have the one and then quickly zoom back onto the cat again. But seeing as though I've left it so late, I've decided to treat Julie with a few. So first up, Thomas Gilroy, who eventually came round to my way of thinking and apologised. Said it was also a working day, Steve. This is regards to the protest on Friday. Not everyone can afford a day off. They haven't got free coin sponging and wanking the Craig twins off. So thanks for that, Thomas. It's not the winner, though. I did get a mention. Adam, quite not as original as hoping for. Fuck Steve Wraith after listening to me on TalkSport. Thanks for that, Adam. Full Ninja Coffee is his handle. Robert Burr. Steve Wraith is the worst representation of the Newcastle fan base there is. A man whose ego is so overinflated. He has to stay relevant, so latches onto anything and everything, though he has all the knowledge when he hasn't got a clue. Laughable. Thanks, Rob. Good to know that you know us. I've never heard of you, mate, but good to know that you know us inside out, clearly. Stephen Scott. Steve Wraith, what an absolute whopper. Talks shite, like most of the pasty-eating mags. Sad bunch. Nice to get a Sunderland reference there as well. And this one, I did put this out. I do sometimes, make a rod for my own back. To the trolls, love Steve when we were down in London last weekend. We got this from Lewis Rutherford, who is me winner this week. That looks like the world's shittest picnic. I think that was very original, Lewis. Well done, son. You are Troll of the Week. Absolutely hilarious, that one, to be honest. But yeah, keep them coming. If you think somebody should be Troll of the Week, please just send them over to me at Steve Wraith on Twitter, and I will try and give them all a mention. Okay, so Doncaster tonight, lads. What are you looking for, Keith, from a friendly tonight at Doncaster? I mean, Mitch coined it a little bit earlier. I guess just be nice to see a goal. It'd be nice to see a clean sheet and just a little bit more advancement on what we saw at York at the weekend.
Better performance than York. Some inventiveness. It'll be useful if Steve Bruce, when he's got 10 players behind him getting a drink stop, can actually turn around and look at them. I don't know why Graham Jones, I would imagine he's enjoyed the Euros, so I don't know how long he's off, but I think these games are vital for him to get back in charge and start. You saw me in the Euros where players were going over to him, at the end and getting a lot of instruction of him. So we need him back in there. In my book, Bruce is clueless. But what I want to say down there is I want to say more commitment. It's wrong for a team of professional footballers who are all going to be millionaires in their own right, that you can see on the show that Jacob Murphy looks better and fitter and more prepared than the rest. It's a professional shortcoming that you getting that kind of wealth into your life in such a short working span. I mean, I'm talking about typically a 10-year span, and you're going to come away being a multi-millionaire. Well, I'd be ashamed if you said to me that any player on there looked fitter than me. And that was a choice Jacob Murphy had. He decided to go and get fit and put himself out ahead of the rest of them. Well, shame on the rest. I hope the buggers have worked like hell this week to catch up. But I would want everybody to run around like Jacob Murphy. And you refer to Richie, and I think it would be his attitude. So I would like to see, all the people that get a shirt, 11 players, show more physical commitment, more attitude, and get a result.
Yeah, black and white daft as well, Jacob Murphy. So well done him. Steve Hasty, what are you looking for tonight?
Yeah, well, you're looking for improvement for a start. It certainly couldn't be worse than you were at York. If it's on NUFC TV, then you're hoping for better camera work as well, I suppose, because again, the camera work that we had when we were watching it down at York, those of us who weren't there, was pretty poor. The one-handed video cam, it kind of struggled with it. But I mean, seriously, on a performance-wise, you want to see improvement. You want to see commitment. Yes, we're into the third week of pre-season training. We're second game. We've got another game coming up on Tuesday night, and then a third game on next Friday. We want to see the start of a bit of a formation. We want to see players that look as though that they actually have met each other in the past. It's amazing how quickly players forget who each other are when they go off on their jollies, and they come back, and It's like, who are you? Where do you play? And sometimes it comes over like that in the first few games. But you know, I'm hoping that we're starting to see the blossom and shoots of some team among them. They had a terrible start last season. I thought they were, you know, but it was a shocking season, full stop. But this is now the third season or the start of the third season under Steve Bruce, and we should be seeing improvement by now. That's what we should be seeing. And let's see whether he can actually manage it. And I know what you're saying, Keith, about Graham Jones, but I think the difference between what we saw in the Euros with Graham Jones and what we're seeing with the Graham Jones at Newcastle is that we saw a Graham Jones who was brought into the England squad with a particular task and was allowed to do that task. And he obviously fitted in very, very well and was well respected. At times last season, what I thought I was seeing was a Graham Jones who the manager was allowing to go through the motions where he wanted him to, and it was like sort of at times it almost looked like what was happening was through gritted teeth. It was one of four people, two of which I haven't a clue what they do, and one of which I don't think knows what he's doing, and I think he just became part of the four at times. And I'm expecting, you know, the gloves are off. I mean, there's no question. He's had Bruce has had 2 seasons, of which 18 months he hasn't played in front of Toon Army, and he's in for a rude awakening if he doesn't get off to a good start.
Mitch, I know you mentioned it a little earlier, but just reiterate, I guess, what your thoughts are about tonight's game.
Progress. I personally don't give a monkeys about results in pre-season. You want to see performances and shape and sharpness and things developing and things that are going to take you forward. You want to see, you know, that progress, to use a word that Bruce likes to use. That's what you want to see. In terms of results, for me, going to pre-season games is all about, I've never been there for a while, or I've not been there before. I'm going to go there and have a trip out. And the game was almost a happenstance for me, and that's still my attitude to pre-season stuff, because it really doesn't mean anything at the end of the day, unless you're seeing. You want to see stuff happening that you think, right, going forward, that's a positive. It's shape, it's fitness, it's performance, it's little glimpses of things coming together. Or they're working on set pieces, like Steve says. Do they look like they actually know who each other are? That kind of thing. So yeah, just a bit of progress. I'm pretty chilled until the first match of the season proper. That's when I get edgy.
Yeah, me too. As long as we beat West Ham, I guess that's all that really matters, that first game. But looking forward to tonight's game. Lads, thanks once again for doing a pre-record. I'm afraid Burton Albion falls on a Friday next week, so I will hook up a game with you next Thursday if that's okay, and we'll be back to doing a live the following week. But big thanks to you guys. Have a great weekend. Mitch, we'll try not to disturb any more of your holiday, mate. Have a good time, mate.
It's all right, mate. No worries. Good to speak to you all as always, man.
Yeah, good to speak to you. I'm glad you're on the men, Steve. Take care, Keith, and look forward to you next week.
Take care, everyone.
See you next week, lads. Bye.
Ta-da.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna